Hello, I'm Ken Flott. This is the Insyghtful Sales Podcast, and I am your host. I'm here this week with good friend and ultra professional Bill Petersen. Bill, thank you so much. It's great to reconnect with you. It's been a while, it's been a minute, but I'm glad that we got a chance to do so. It's always good to talk to you. So, I always like to start the shows off with essentially asking our hosts, our guests, to give a rundown of what you do, what you've been doing, and give us some of your success. Give us your video CV, if you will.
Sure. No, it was great to see you as always and be here with you. Enablement, right? I've been in enablement over 20 years. It's where my passion lies. It is so fulfilling. You get to meet everyone that comes into at least the go-to-market side of companies. Often everybody. You're the glue at sometimes, you sort of, I call it Switzerland at time. You sit between sales, operations, marketing, you even have the, SDR and AE part of sales, customer service, customer success, account management. Plus you have marketing, demand generation, product marketing. And all those are such important elements and pieces of a company. And when enablement can sort of sit in the middle and help orchestrate and bring out the strengths and the powers of each of those groups, that is really extremely powerful. And I'm sure that will come up in a lot of the things that we talk about today, Ken.
Excellent. Yeah. So just by way of full disclosure, I worked with Bill for a short time when I moved over to a company that we were both at. I was sad to see you go. Because sitting where I've been for 20 years in the sales space, it's hard to find genuine people who are in your side of things and people that you immediately respect. You get a good feeling from them. I got that from you. Many people who are enabling sales training, those kinds of things, who work for the company, not sales training like, Sandler and whatnot, like things like that's different. But people who work for the company who are in enablement, I always felt, I'll speak for myself, I always felt that they were kind of towing the company line. Like, this is what they want you to know. This is how where they want you to push. And I felt from you took a more objective approach to there's, what's right and who's right, and you're like, this is what's right, this is what I think is going to work to help make salespeople successful. And I felt I got that from you. So just that's where Bill and I met. Again, it was a short time that we were together, but I tried to absorb that from the first interaction I remember having with him. Is I'm at my desk at this new job. I was probably there maybe 2 weeks, and he comes by to make sure, and he was breaking my balls about it. I had all my little printout sheets of software on the walls of my cubicle. He's like, you got all your stuff to refer to. That's good. Excellent. That's good. You'll forget about those immediately. But so he came by to make sure that just to break my balls, because he knew that stuff was going to be there. That's what every salesperson does. Yep. New company, new software. Let me have the things that I think are important. They're like, within reach, so you can refer to them. First, so that leads us to the first question. Bill, in your position over the years, give me some examples, or an example, if you like, of things that you've seen that work really well for companies of any size with regards to enabling salespeople.
Sure. And it's interesting, kind of the introduction. Thank you. And again, I always enjoyed working with you and staying in touch. I think two things that helped, and I think it gave good perspective. I was originally a social worker, so I loved to work with, dually diagnosed, disabled adults. And you just learn there's a special empathy that, to be able to be in that field. And probably the saddest day in my life was when you realize no matter how much you were going to move, you weren't going to feed a family. Mm-hmm. And the closest thing I could find was enablement. It lent me into a world where I can help people. I can help people within a certain construct. And I didn't want to lose who I was doing something, right? When I graduated college, I probably would have been voted most likely never to be in corporate America. Yet here I am. And the other thing I will say that kind of led to really understanding what works and what doesn't was really starting at an extremely large company. And when I say large, I mean probably the largest technology company in the US, footprint wise and people wise. And that exposed me to process. It exposed me to, scaling, to growing, working together, cross, department communication. And I think those two things kind of put together, I will say the companies that have always done well, there was a level of empathy. I think there was that understanding of these are humans that want to have careers, who have aspirations. Everyone may be doing them for different things and at different points in life. Some are trying to feed kids, some are trying to go on vacations, some are trying to get their first house, some are trying to move to their second house. And the companies that kind of embraced understanding the human side as well and had career progression, had things for people to aim for, to, aspire towards, I think was extremely important. And again, smaller companies, there isn't always those opportunities, but how do you make people feel like that, right? And, I know we were just chatting a little before, but it's like when you were saying about in comedy, you want to say something nice about someone, you use their name, you want to kind of have a jest, you don't use their name and hope the inference is, understood. I think, smaller companies can highlight people's wins, people's successes and things like that. So I think those are really important. But I think the number one thing that I've seen over the years was nailing a good process across the board, right? Whether it's we're going to do product training, do you have a rubric or sort of a plan put together of who is going to do what is going to happen when? How are you going to measure those deliverables, right? It could be the sales process itself. How defined is it? What are you attaching to that sales process as far as, discovery questions and things like that? So process to me is sort of the underpinning of everything you can do. And it helps people scale. It gives people like to know what's coming.
Yeah.
Right. And in any delivery of a product, delivery of a sales kickoff, whatever it is, when everyone knows what they're doing, even if they don't see the whole blueprint, the house gets built correctly. And I think to me, that was one of the most important things to be able to bring places, right? I know when we worked together, right, we had certain days, everyone knew these were the days we're going to talk about the product. Certain days we're going to talk about selling technique or the sales process and things like that. And I think people like knowing what they're coming into, why they're coming into something. And the more you can give that what and why, there's much more buy-in as companies grow, scale, and also people be successful within that.
Yeah, I like a lot of what you said there. I want to hit on the empathy piece because I think that's lost in the corporate world, regardless of what size of the company is. Empathy to them is, do you empathize with the fact that we have a bottom line to make, right? You need to have empathy with regards to we're trying to make money here. That's different than addressing the individual needs of everyone. I'm not saying you sit down with everyone and ask them, hey, what do you need? But as a manager, yeah, you should. Like you go with like empathy and also, what is it you're working for? So the why, what's everyone's why? As a manager, sit down with them and ask what it is that they're, what's their why? Why are you doing this? Right? You're not doing it because sales is fun. What's fun is the chase and the close. Everything else is not fun about it. Right? Everything else is certainly, at least I don't think it's fun. Is a lot of anxiety around that stuff. You've got numbers to make. You've got calls to make. You've got things you have to put into the CRM, right? To make sure all of that's the KPIs, which I think are complete nonsense. We can talk about that later on if you want to. But it's like the empathy of, so what is it that's bothering you? What are you working for? That the empathy piece, I think, is a big thing that companies could do a better job of addressing. Again, you're my manager, you sit me down and just have a conversation around that stuff. So trying to find out what it is that I'm working towards, why I'm working for it. what's bothering you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we talked about this last time. We had Bill and I had a call earlier in the week just to catch up, and it's what is it that is in your life that's could be something that like a lot of the work is work, but outside of that empathy, outside of that, what's driving you with regards to that? Have you got like a big car bill coming in? Is your wife or your mother or your sister sick? That kind of thing. That's
Mm-hmm.
gonna Vu and I will talk about this a little bit. My CEO at Insyghtful AI, we were talking about that. It's like things like that are going to affect you on a subconscious level. Like you and I talking today, I could be totally distracted, and I could like not seem like myself, and you don't know what it is, and unless someone talks about the empathy piece, unless someone talks about like, oh, okay, I understand why this is. Well, let's talk through that first, so we can understand one another, and then we can get to the place where we can get some business done. Make sure that we do that today, as opposed to putting it off. Because the longer you put it off, the longer things are going to go without getting done, and still successes in sales. I had a question or an idea around like the learning aspect.
Mm-hmm.
When we worked together, that product was highly technical. If you didn't have a network background at all, if you came in cold and didn't know anything, it was going to be a very difficult problem to understand, let alone sell. You had to understand it to do that. So an idea behind that is, and I wonder if you've done this, and let me know about your approach to teaching.
Mm-hmm.
We'll put it that. We'll put it as a teacher, like teaching someone to learn and or to sell a product, is a scaffolded approach. In other words, you can't move on to the next portion of the product until you learn this code, right? So you put it in different ways, like you learn, a certain portion of the product and master that, and then you move on to the next part, and then you put those two pieces together. That's what scaffolded learning is, right? So you learn piece by piece. That's a good way. If you think about it in guitar playing, you don't learn the whole guitar, you don't learn the whole song.
Right.
Whether you're playing a horn or what, you learn pieces at a time, and then you put them all together, and then you play them together over and over and over, so you get repetition. So discuss with me, if you will, how what your approach is to learning, teaching, and that kind of thing. People, and we can take it as someone who doesn't know anything, or to a professional who gets stuff like right here, whatever you want to do.
Yeah, and I think one thing people forget: we spend more of our life outside of work than in it. Right. We work 8 hours a day. Yes, some people, we have 10, 12-hour days here and there and all those kind of things. But also we had our years till we got out of school, right? That we weren't, maybe we did do some work, but it wasn't probably, equal to the 40 hours and all that kind of stuff. And I think we think in terms of ourselves, right? Humans do, right? We think in terms of, I'm bringing myself to work. And I think that's where some of that empathy comes in. It's not always praise empathy, but it's that empathy too, sometimes of how is someone going to understand something that's kind of complex? How do we break that down into something they can understand? And I'm not sure if you were there at the time, but I remember when we really grew, we grew fast. And, we almost tripled the sales team by the point, I know you were there. And it was pretty sizable. We moved offices, the whole 9 yards. The interesting thing was, how do I get someone to understand a network who's never really dealt with a network? They just know my Google's working and my Google's not working.
Right.
Right. So I think I had to back up. How do I get someone to understand a network? So one of the things I did, I had the sales engineers kind of mimic the shape of a network. Right. Mm-hmm. So we had, your firewall, your load balancer, then you had your switches and routers behind it. And what I did, I had each of the sales engineers sort of stand in that progression. And they had little prompts of what to say. And then each of the reps, I would give them a note card. And it would say, oh, I'm an email to Ken Flott. I need him to get on a call and help me do whatever. So what they would do is I give them that note card. They walked up to the first person who was the firewall, and he would go, "Hark, who goes there?" And well, I'm a packet that is containing an email going to Ken for all these reasons. Okay, please go to the left. And you'd go over to the left side of the load, and he goes, "Hark, who goes there?" And he goes, and basically they would state what they were, so they would hear what that part was. I'm the load balancer. My job is to make sure traffic's even, things aren't jamming up, and make sure traffic is moving and you can get your Google, your email's going to get there, all that stuff's working, right? Then he go, okay, please go to the switch over there. And you go, Hark, who goes there? I'm a switch, right? I do blah, blah, and blah. And it was cool because I had all the different versions, email packets, a request to look at something on Google, trying to play music on YouTube while doing work, all those different things. And by the end, people got, because they heard everyone else's versions coming through. And, we had 40 salespeople at that time. They were going through, you heard what the load balancer did. Right? You heard what a switch does. You heard what a firewall does like 30, 40 times over and over again, and saw the physical effect of the network. And we even got to the point, imagine if the, firewall, the load balancer kept sending everything to the same switch. What's going to happen?
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And it opened up some pretty strong discussions around that. So I think empathy sometimes isn't always necessarily, hey, Ken, you do an awesome job. Great, woo, great upfront contract, great discovery questions, whatever. But sometimes it's backing up and going, okay, this is where people are. How can I help them get to that next level, next step? Yeah.
So just for, by way of education, is the software that we have. So people, if they don't know like how a network works, what we're talking about with regards to load balancers and switches and firewalls, all of those things, there is, we refer to when talking about that stuff to the people we are selling to, there's a 7-layer model, right? So us, Bill and I right now are sitting at layer 7. That would be your laptop, right? So the end of the line where everything starts from, right? So and that includes printers, and that includes, fax machines, believe it or not. Some people still use fax machines, right? Copiers, so hardware at the end of the line, right? So that connects to the network, that's layer 7. The things that we addressed got all the way down to, he was at about layer 4 or 5. We got down to layer 2 and 3, which is the transport level, part of that security as well. You can look it up, the 7-layer model. We're talking about layer 2 and 3. So one of the engineers that we worked with, he came out of MIT and Lincoln Labs. I remember Rick Larkin.
Yeah.
I don't think he'd mind me using his name. Super smart dude. And he used to call it, those are the people. So the people that we talk to, those are people that use all the nerd knobs, right? So talk about the nerd knobs. Like people talk about layer 2 and 3. People have no idea what we're talking about, But it's imperative that those things function properly. Otherwise, nothing works. Absolutely nothing works. Right up down the line. There are products on the market that give you a 30,000-foot view of the network that'll look at it and say, oh, look, there's something wrong. Okay, cool. And what is it? It's this thing here. The difference between what we did and what they did was they told you there's something wrong. We can tell you literally right down to where it is and what it was and where it sits in the network. That's a huge deal. When you're talking about, and from my perspective, I worked with federal people, and they have some of the largest networks in the world. So you can imagine if there's a problem between one base and another base, and that base is 4 states away, how many different quote unquote hops or how many different devices are in between those 2 places and where the problem can be? It's like, well, it could be any one of 1,000 to 100,000 different devices, right? So that was the importance of what Bill was talking about, was like, hey, this is this device talking about this. That's important to know. And to me, it's incredibly important. I'm sure we've lost everybody already, but I just love talking about that stuff because it's interesting to me. Anyway, so that was a great way to go about that. As hopefully you learn something from Bill talking about that stuff, and it spurs you to look up how a network works. Actually, really interesting stuff. So anybody interested in like cybersecurity, for instance, those are things you would need to know. And what Bill was telling you are things that you would learn. Sometimes they present them that way, sometimes they don't. But the way he was teaching right there was a great way to learn it, so you know what the network is and what it does. So give me an example of what you wish companies would do or make standardized with regards to, teaching salespeople products and whatnot.
I think supporting it is where it really starts, right? It's the expectation of managers that people are going to be involved and engaged. And often that means the manager being there, being an active participant.
Yeah.
Even I'm one of those folks, I don't want someone to just sit there quietly. If you're a leader, you're a manager, interrupt me, say things, make key points, bring it to reality. And
I can make a point on that. From a salesperson perspective, the last thing I want to hear from a manager is, just let me know if you need anything. It's not helpful.
Exactly. And so, programs that people are part of, they take pride in them, they like them, and now they become part of the culture, right? Where everyone's included. I also believe that companies need to understand that we're not always the resource. We can be. We should be on sales process and things like that. But are we going to be the deepest technical person? I always try to learn the product. I think at NetBrain, even though I was not a technical person, right? I learned it. I tried to break it down. I actually took the network class I could feel like I understood it. But also there are times where the resources are needed and that they all need to work together and understand enablement's just here to help you wheelhouse it, manage it, project manage it. So all you need to come in is do your part, know what it is, product talking about the product, or sales engineering showing it and, tying it together, right? And I wish companies just understood how important that role is to be able to help. You're basically highlighting, you're almost empathizing with each of the roles and what they bring to the table. And I think that's where being at a very large company helped, because you learn that that's how you scale. A product person talking about the why. Why did we build it this way, right? What things were we responding to in the market, or even in our, on what we hear customers saying on calls, or even our current customers, during renewal processes and things like that. Product marketing, talking about, tying that together, right? Enablement themselves, giving the right discovery questions, right? All those kind of things. The sales engineers helping people show how to talk and show the product correctly. Demand gen, right? Because it doesn't just end like, okay, great, all about the product. But how are customers, they're going to come inbound, how are they going to come to you? But also, what are they being told, right? What are those emails? What are those LinkedIn posts? What are those, webinars? What's happening on them? So when someone comes to you, you know what was said to them, and you can kind of pick up that ball and have smarter discussions earlier and lead to more discovery as you go. So I think, I wish companies would understand how pivotal a good enablement person, can be, and tying and leveraging, and I think empathizing with who has what and highlighting that and making them all superstars. And in turn, the company wins. And I would say the second thing is, how do you turn that into how do you talk to your customers? And I believe it's not just how you do things net new, but it's how do we empathize? We should be empathizing with the customers. And when you work in a world of empathy where people are highlighting people's strengths, right? Where people are always getting pats on the back for doing the right things. I worked at a company that was founded on that, right? We sold rewards and recognition. The CEO wrote the book, The Power of Thanks. I will always say, I remember I got into an argument once with a gentleman who was like, you should never say thank you in sales. And I get the tough guy kind of game, but I will always say, after I love you, the two most important words are thank you. And when you build a culture off of that, that also goes to how you talk to your customers. You're thankful for them, right? You're empathizing with what they're trying to do, right? You're helping them measure the success of what you set them up for, right? And when they hit a level of success, how do we find what the next point of success is, and how can we measure that and help you get there. And I think people just sort of forget that breeds going forward. How you do everything makes a big difference.
Yeah, excellent. Great stuff there. I want to hit on a couple of points there. One is, I'll say for me, and I'll speak only for me, hopefully someone will agree with this, is that it is in fact my job as a salesperson to know the product inside and out, because I want to get to the point where if I'm calling Bill Petersen and he has any question about the product, I'll be able to answer him immediately on the call. Say, oh, let me at least try and show you. If not, let me find out someone right now we can show you right now. But I have to know the product inside and out, because sometimes it comes down to, oh, well, we don't do that. You know, that's not something we do. So without saying it, but don't waste your time and don't waste our time in going through the process and trialing the product only to find out that ultimately it doesn't work, because you're wasting resources, right? If I can tell you up front, yeah, we can do that. Here's how we do that. Would you like to see more, right? That kind of thing. I think that's important to know. And I think that's imperative that and I've seen it 1,000 times in different companies I've worked for, is that you get salespeople who are ultimately entitled. They want everyone to do everything else for them. And all they want to do is make the initial call. They want to schedule a demo for the sales engineer, and then they want to negotiate or collect the PO. That's not a sales process. If you're using that as a sales process, you're doing it wrong. You're doing yourself a disservice, and you're wasting the company's time and resources. Learn the product inside and out. We go back to stand-up. I did stand-up way a long time ago. Not important, but the important part of it is the best stand-ups. I'll give you a couple examples of why I'm saying what I'm about to say. The best stand-ups are those who can address hecklers in a way that they can put them down, make everybody laugh, and get back to the material that they have. The only way you can do that is if you know your material inside and out. Stand-up comics who get angry at hecklers, they're angry because they don't know the material well enough, or you've thrown them off their game because they have a role going. They're speaking, right? They're speaking at you. It's not, participatory. It should be participatory. Yeah. If you're enjoying it, I want to enjoy it with you. Bill, there were times during that time where I would say things that I haven't heard before, and I would laugh myself right along with the audience, and I would apologize for laughing, but I hadn't also heard that joke either. So could someone remind me of that sometime, for that joke? Because otherwise I'm going to forget about it. But if there's a heckler that comes and say, yeah, you can start screaming and yelling all you want. Let's have that conversation. That, to me, that was another opportunity to, bring some fresh material. I don't know what you want to talk about, what you're yelling about, but let's find out. And usually, well, I shouldn't say usually, but a lot of times the person with the biggest mouth is the one who has the smallest tolerance for being the focus of attention. And you can see it immediately. And once you see that immediately, you don't let up. You bring it to them, because you can turn the spotlight right on them. So everyone, and they don't like that, right? So I think, so that approach, so knowing the product inside and out, knowing your jokes inside and out, those are two things that you should hold on to, know the product inside and out. But also, I think companies do a disservice to letting salespeople off the hook who don't know the product, right? The spotlight on them, right? I'm not saying in front of their peers. I'm saying managers need to say, notice that you're struggling a bit with this part of the software. Let's get together with Bill or the sales engineers and get you strong on that, because that could win or lose you a sale. So you mentioned earlier about managers being there for them. At Insyghtful AI, we may as well mention that we've got the software that we use. We've got a portion of the product which I think is important, which is part of the reason why I'm here. That I believe in it is on a call. If Bill is my manager and we're having a call with a prospect, he can be watching in on the call. Hey, Bill, I'm having trouble with this. Could you be on this call? And he'd be right there with me. The customer is not going to see it, but he can make suggestions to me, right? So two ways that you can do that is Bill can do it live, or you load in your sales playbook, and the sales playbook will say, hey, they just mentioned this. You should talk about this. That would be invaluable. Right? That would be an invaluable resource, right? To be able to have that. So that's one thing that we can do. So I've got another thing for you. So on a negative aspect, in a negative sense, what are things that companies get wrong with regards to sales training? And if you want to expand on things you've already hit upon, totally fine with that. Or, what have they gotten wrong that they just don't like to fix? That's something along those lines.
Yeah, and I think kind of tying with what you just said, it's that separation of product knowledge and sales, right? And process, right?
Yeah.
Technique, process, all that. And one of the things over time, and now with the power of AI and tools like Insyghtful and others, where you pull stuff out after the fact and kind of run them through with the proper prompts and all that kind of stuff. But one of the things I started to see is that there's that almost like separation of church and state between product knowledge and sales technique, where I really like to build now the sales process with the product in mind, right? We know what the stages are, but within those stages, what are the themes? What really matters to your buyer, right? And uncovering what those are. And those are often product related, not always deep, right? But they're product related. And being able to use your sales technique that is speaking product without sounding like it all the time. And I think that's something that's really important to really get past, right? That, I can ask a good discovery question, but you think about, those outside sources that come in, the very generic questions. How do you take those generic questions and not only make them around your product but around your customers, and what do they care about, and being able to ask them in a way that gets to the right point of talking about the product correctly. You're uncovering the right things. So when you become demo time, whether it's yourself doing it or a sales engineer, you have all the right information. And I would also say the one other thing is the difference between need and fit. And that's one thing over time I've really come to see, right? We get so focused around pain, right? We love that word in sales, pain.
Yeah.
Pain in the end is emotional, right? We're playing on the strongest emotion out there because no one's going to change unless there's pain, right? Your car died, well, you need a new one, right? It's not fixable, right? I need a new car. Why? I got to get to work. I got to pick up my kids. I got to do whatever. Those are the pains. But also that understanding of fit, right? Need are the big picture things, and being able to understand, why are you talking to us? Why are you looking at our product, right? Because we're trying to get funding. We're trying to get a bigger market share this year. We need to get to a certain level so we can hire 2 more engineers and build out the product more. We're looking to make an acquisition, right? Whatever it may be, those are the needs. And those are things we got to drive value towards. But then also there's fit. What are the technical aspects, right? Are there APIs that are going to be in play? Do you have resources on your side to assist you with connecting and making sure the APIs are doing their right thing? Is this going to work within the ecosystem that you have and the other products that you leverage that are in place? So I think the second part is that breaking out, understanding the difference between need and fit, really help you drive towards a strong, being able to show the right solution for them within the context of what matters to them.
That's excellent. Yeah. So along those lines, with regards to, from a sales perspective, is what you're trying to do is, if Bill calls me up and says, hey, does your software do X? It's like, yeah, we do X. What is it you're trying to solve? Right? Give them something, and then let Bill talk. Right? Let Bill talk. I'm trying to solve so I mentioned this on everything and on every show so far, but still is, you got to know the product, right? To know how to ask the right questions. And once you ask the right questions, shut up and listen. You might actually sell something. Listening is so important. You listen, active listening. You're not listening to respond. You're listening to understand and ask.
Absolutely.
So what is it? What is the fault? What are you trying to solve? Let them talk, because once you let a prospect talk about their stuff, people love to talk about what they love, talking about themselves, man. They love that, regardless of what it is, whether it's stuff they do outside of work, or stuff they do in work, or problems they're having in work, or their manager, whatever their project, whatever they're talking about, they want to talk about themselves. Let them do it, because they will get comfortable at some point. This is an oratory thing. People get comfortable. Once they get comfortable and they start talking, they will reveal things to you that they probably wouldn't do if you're just asking them about your product. Well, we can do this. So if I show up and throw up and here's everything that our software can do. If I don't hit on the right thing, they make, oh, okay, thanks a lot. And then you didn't hit on the right thing. But what is it you're trying to accomplish? What do you want to do, Bill? Right? And let Bill talk about his stuff. He's going to give you what you need. And if it's not a good fit, it's not a good fit this time, but hopefully you give them a good experience and be able to sell them something down the road, or maybe even this time, whatever. That's a good example about that is a contractor, a Fed contractor called up, and he wasn't angry, but he was a bit standoffish about the software he'd purchased. And this is like months after the purchase, months and months and months. And he's like, I've got a meeting, tomorrow, and I can't figure out something on and you told me that your software could be like, he's accusatory. And here's a technique also, like a sales technique, but also in life as well. Somebody goes at you and they're all charged up or whatnot, undercut it. Don't meet it. If you meet it, they're going to try and outdo you. But what you want to do is you want to undercut it. Tell me what the problem is, right? And so, and if they get angry, eventually they're going to calm down. They're going to meet you down here. They're going to meet your energy. Good. Let them meet your energy down here. And he told me what the problem was there was a change in the network. So configuration files tells those individual pieces what to do and how to handle things, right? That's as simple as I can put it. And he doesn't know where it was, who did it. It was like, all right. So, and he goes, I've tried this, this, and this. And I was like, how about we attack it a different way? Do you have the particular, so the configuration file, it says string of characters, you wouldn't even know what it is. It just looks silly, right? So here's what it is, and you're telling it to do this, and okay, cool. So why don't you look for pieces of your network that don't have that on it? Mm. It's like, oh, so your deductive reasoning. You know pretty much which ones that do. Find the ones that don't, and see if they matter. And if the ones that don't have it don't matter, don't worry about them. The ones that don't have it do matter. Put it on there, and then there is a log. And I almost regret telling them this, because somebody definitely got in trouble. It kept a log as to who logged into the product and who changed what, and all of the devices they changed. Right? It's like, if you look that up, you're able to find them, but be nice to them, because I didn't tell you that for that reason, so that they could get in trouble, but so you could find out who it was. So again, you have to have that product knowledge, but someone, having that, to go back to empathy, having that empathy of they've got a problem, let's solve it, and they're angry, but again, I'll underscore, it's like, don't meet their anger, don't meet their level of what, undercut it, so you can get to because the most important thing to them is not yelling at you, but fixing their problem, right? So if you
absolutely,
yeah.
And I will always say, there's I should probably copyright this little statement, but I love your idea of letting them talk, right? Yeah. Because I will always say, one of the golden rules of sales is he or she who gets the most amount of information wins.
Yeah.
Why? Because anything you say can and will be used against you in a court of sales.
Yeah, absolutely.
So the more they talk, now you have all the things to put in the demo, right? You have all the value statements. You told me you were trying to do X. Yeah. Here's how this is going to help you solve X.
Yeah.
Right. And I think, the more we understand, it's not about what we say, it's about what we hear, and then how do we respond to that correctly.
Yeah, so everybody just think of information as a commodity. Think of information as a non-crypto thing, right? So it's more valuable than crypto. All right, I don't care what anybody says. Information is a commodity, and you should want to be the king or queen of information. Everything that you can know, and this is in particular with regards to sales, is your industry, your prospects, your teammates, your management, everything, absorb everything and make sure that you're listening actively. When someone else is talking, that's not a time for you to check your phone. When someone else is talking, you can learn a number of things. Like, if I know what one of my teammates doesn't know, and I know that they don't know it, that's something I can use. Maybe even against them, but still, is you can use it against them, maybe close a sale or whatnot, or something you can use to help them. They ask this question, again, don't call them out in the meeting, pull them aside and say, you asked this, can you tell me why you asked that? What don't you understand? If you know it, help them along, because that helps the team as well. Be that person as well in sales. Be the person who people turn to, not the person who people turn away from for information.
Correct. And like you just kind of pointed out about use it against them. It's not meant to be in a negative way either.
Absolutely not. Absolutely.
I'm using it. I mean, we think of it in sales as sort of the battle game, right? Yeah. But in the end, what are we doing? We're trying to really find out what matters to you, right? There's this concept called the perfect meeting, right? And for discovery, right? First time discovery. And I'm sure you saw it with me in the past, but that idea of start with the industry first, right? That's they all function. Everyone lives in an industry. Right? Are there things causing you to react a certain way? Right? Are you trying to move up a position in your quadrants or your stack ranking of companies and dollar figures and all that? All those things are really important. How do you perceive yourself? How do you want to be perceived in your industry? And that really tells you like how they see themselves as a company, who they are, what are they trying to accomplish? Then you take it down. Okay, well, in your department, at the company level, what are you doing to respond to the industry, right? And then in turn, what are you doing in your specific world, marketing, sales, engineering, whatever? What are you doing, right, to make that do your part of the whole to fit that? Then you have the right to be able to start tying your product to their needs. But now you have that understanding of how did they get to me? How did they get to the point of listening and talking to me? I can really get to the true depth of it and understand them and make them feel heard. That's that empathy kind of coming out. But what are you doing? You're arming yourself to win.
Yeah, it's a good, I don't know why this reminded me of that, but there was, we all were getting calls from an outside source, someone to try and sell us like a 401k plan from this when we were at the place in Burlington, right? Like, and it was ringing to like each desk, right? So it got around to me, and I asked Steve Hopkins, who was sitting in front of me at the time. I go, "Hey, Hoppy, what's this guy's name?" He tells me. I go, "Oh, hi, Derek. This is Ken from NetBrain. Can you call me right back so I can hang up on you? Thank you." So I call, and he calls right back. He's laughing and go, "You've called everyone. Literally everyone you just called is like sitting like all around me, dude. We have our own plan here. We're not interested. So if you want to try a different company, you can do that. But if you want to call me back again, I will hang up on you." So he called back and hung up on like an idiot. So
nice.
I don't know why that reminded me of that, but
sure.
So I got a question for you.
Sure.
Give me I should say, is there someone, and if there is, let us know, is in your career who you can define or who defined a person you would say is that is a great manager?
Yep. And I'll call him out by name, Lane Monson. Right. And I will also throw my dad in there as a sort of side reason too. But Lane was a leader of a very large group at a very large company. And he understood the combinations of empathy, but also needing to do your job. He communicated very well. And he was creative, and he allowed people to be creative, right? Like, that example I gave with the network that we did, in the past, he was always open to, he kind of unlocked me from corporate kind of stuck in the box kind of way of doing things. And just always supported. He was just a very positive person, even when there was need for something to be better. And I thought just the way he approached things, how he was matter of fact when it needed to be, but he also got to know everyone really well and understood, did you have kids? Are you married? Are you not? Are you trying to, are you at that point? I'm trying to get my first apartment, my first house, my first car, whatever. He understood those things. And I feel he just brought the best out of everyone. And there were little things that he did, right? Like I remember we had an all hands meeting of this group. I thought he would cry if he didn't shake everyone's hand. Like he was that, I'm going to, meet you on your level. I'm here to shake your hand. I'm a person. I'm not going to run away from you. I'm going to support you. I'm going to help you work through things, talk through things. And I thought that was extremely important. And then I'll just say second, overall, my dad. My dad was an extremely smart man. He worked where Mr. Rick Late worked as well. So he was an MIT Lincoln Lab guy.
There you go.
My dad, not many people grow up say, yes, my dad was a rocket scientist. He was. So he taught me the balance of being and understanding technical, but he had a way about him to be able to explain it to other people. And I thought that just brought something special to my life, that to be around technical, but not really have that deep technical, like sales is my world. It's been for over 25 years. I love being in the sales world. But I think what I learned from him really helped me understand that product and sales blend. Not that they're here and here, but that they work together, and there are ways we can kind of work our way up the scale of now you're selling and all your products included.
Yeah, so that brings up that's beautiful, man. That's really cool, and brings up something I like to say is that you don't need a degree to work in sales unless because it's not rocket science. But if you're selling to rocket scientists, you're probably going to need a degree.
Exactly. Need a degree just to be his son.
There you go. Right there you go. Look how it turned out for you. Beautiful, man. Absolutely beautiful. I got one last thing, which is advice for, you've got someone coming to you who is fresh out of college and wants to get in sales. What do you want them to know immediately on day one?
I would say if you can understand how businesses work, right? Because you're calling into companies and you may be at different, selling different products to different, ICPs, different industries over your career. But companies function in a certain way, right? They get approvals for buying things a certain way. They function in a certain way. And the more you understand how those roles work and what they care about, you will be able to then understand the personas no matter where you go. You'll be able to understand the buying process, right? You'll be able to understand why paper, right? You get to that really end part, as we call slip process, security, legal, infosec, procurement. All those have a process and a reason why they exist. The more you can understand that, the better, right? Like you got an operations person. Why are they trying to buy what they're trying to buy? What are they scaling? What is the ROI they're expecting? Why is that ROI expected of them by people above them? I remember one of the gentlemen I worked with at another company in Burlington, not the one we were at, but he will always say, he goes, the 3 up and 3 out. Whoever you're talking to, you need to think the 3 levels above them, what do they care about? Because they have to sell up to internally, but also 3 out. What are they hoping 3 years from now? What are they saying about us? How successful are they with it? And how am I going to show them that they are being successful because of partnering with me?
Nice. Very nice. Have you got anything on your agenda from personal standpoint that you'd like to share with everybody? Could be a hobby. It could be, a book you've read. It could be a movie you saw. It could be anything at all.
Sure. Unfortunately, wrong season for my ultimate hobby, but some of it does start this time of year. We're big gardeners, me and my wife, and both my kids. Actually, my older daughter ended up going to school for that and has her degree in sustainable food and farming. Yeah. So it's something we've been very passionate about. We love, nothing is better than in the summer, just walking outside with a colander, picking your own lettuce, picking a couple tomatoes, grabbing a cucumber, maybe grabbing some herbs to, sprinkle it up and have some, fun with it. We grow our own berries and, make pies and cobblers and things like that. But I think it's one of those things where you start to see the analogies to life and to sales, right? You understand you have to do certain things for something to grow. And I think that's like following a sales process, to kind of tie it back to what we're talking about, things, the seasonal changes, where the sun is in the sky, how much rain you've had, right? All those things, those are like objections, right? And how do you work around them? How do you work with the positives and the things that are really good? And I think also too, just the satisfaction afterwards, sitting there going, yeah, this tastes a heck of a lot better than buying something in the store that probably traveled all around, God knows where, was in hot trucks, and now it's in the back cool room and they're spraying water all over it and all that kind of stuff. There's a satisfaction of feeling somewhat self-sufficient, and to me, that's just a passion project. So anyone who is interested in growing and, kind of wondering what could I do differently, feel free to reach out. I always love talking some good gardening talk, happy to talk some sales talk as well. But that's our passion project. And it's grown over the years. We get to the point now at the end of the season, we freeze 10 gallons of spaghetti, tomato sauce to have for over the winter. We have herbs, growing all year and then freeze dried and ready to go all year. So that's our passion. It's kind of a fun project that bears fruit, as they say.
That's cool. It fits perfectly with what you're doing, because professionally, what you do, what I'll boil it down to is you assist growth in individuals and organizations, and that's perfect. The whole gardening thing is absolutely perfect to that. Bill, this was phenomenal. I'm so glad that we had time to talk and to catch up. Let's not make it so long next time.
No, absolutely. You call anytime, I'll be here.
Excellent. Thank you, Bill. We'll talk soon. I will have Bill's contact information, his LinkedIn, in the show description and whatnot. So thank you, and we'll see you soon.
Awesome. Thank you, Ken. Definitely will.
Take care.